When you picture a gun in the Old West, what do you think of? A rifle, revolver, or pistol? Shotgun? Whatever you picture, you're probably imagining a gun with no name. But just like in modern times, these guns' names were as infamous as the heroes or outlaws who carried them. You have to remember that in these times, disputes were often not resolved through compromise or negotiation but by force. And if you had the right guns, even the meekest men could turn the tables and have their words become law. If you had a gun that could shoot quickly, have enhanced accuracy, and be easy to reload, and your opponent had a cumbersome musket, you could easily beat them. And depending on your situation, there were many guns to choose from. In this video, we will examine 10 guns that shaped the Old West and America as a whole. But before we do, please subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. After this video is over, tell us your favorite gun, either from the Old West or from modern times. 1. The Colt Paterson revolver. The revolver is the most recognizable gun in the West, and the Colt Paterson lineup is a vital part of it. You've probably heard the name Colt many times, but if you're new to guns, you may not know who Colt was. Samuel Colt was an industrialist who made the mass production of revolvers possible. His Colt Paterson revolver, produced from 1836 to 1842, was the first commercial repeating handgun of its time. The Paterson name comes from the fact that it was made in Paterson, New Jersey. This gun was patented not just in the United States but also in England and France. This revolver revolutionized the West, but it was a lot different than what we're used to. For one thing, the gun had 5, not 6 shots in the .28 caliber model. It lacked a loading lever, so every time you wanted to load it up, you had to disassemble it. However, starting around 1839, a reloading lever was incorporated along with a capping window, so you could reload without disassembling the gun. Another strange addition to this gun was the folding trigger. The Colt Paterson had this, but later revolvers did not. However, it was only visible when the hammer was cocked. Another misconception is the idea that everyone had a revolver. In truth, Samuel Colt had a monopoly on the revolver market until the 1850s, and if you wanted one, it would cost you. While some tried to copy, it ended with copyright infringements and very few cheaper models that worked the same way the Colt Paterson did. How much did it cost? A Colt Paterson costs about $50, or over $1,000, in today's money. Not something a poor cowhand could afford. And when they scrounged up enough money to buy one, it was a treasured heirloom that was passed down from generation to generation. Instead, the revolver was used by the Army, especially the Texas Rangers. This is thanks to Captain Jack Hayes, who handed his company a surplus of them. The gun helped to colonize the West, including winning a vital battle in the Texas Indian Wars, the Battle of Bandera Pass. It was 50 Rangers and militia versus over 200 Comanche. When the battle was said and done, the quick shooting of the Colt Paterson won the day, and only 5 of the Rangers and militia died in battle. The Comanche wasn't so lucky. While primitive nowadays, the Colt Paterson made a single person feel like a one-man army. And when an entire army had them, they were an unstoppable force. But what if your target was long distance? Then you would have shot them with the next gun on this list. 2. Sharps Rifle, 1850. Next, we have the Sharps Rifle. If you see a rifle in an Old West story, there's a good chance that it's a Sharps. The name comes from its designer, Christian Sharps. The Sharps rifles were single-shot, breech-loading, falling block rifles that were used from 1848 until about 1881. At the time, these rifles were masters at long-distance sharpshooting. Effectively, you could hit your target up to 1,000 yards. But if you were really seasoned with your sharpshooting, you could hit a target at triple the distance. In some cases, an outlaw would have gotten away from the law, and it felt like they were close to escaping. But all it took was one shot from a Sharps for the outlaw to come crashing down off his horse. And if the shooter was really accurate, the outlaw could be running away 1 second and lights out for good the next. But distance was not the only winning factor with the Sharps rifles. They were one of the few designs that adapted to using metallic cartridges. This gun was used in many instances, from the Bleeding Kansas conflict to sport hunting. In fact, this rifle was the reason the buffalo population was decimated in the late 1800s. Herds of buffalo were all gone, and it was thanks to one rifle. This rifle truly showed that man had conquered the beast. The 1874 Sharps model was one of the most popular, resulting in future derivatives succeeding this. Many .4 and .50 caliber cartridges were used with this rifle, and it accommodates many barrel lengths and loadings. In Civil War reenactments, the Sharps model 1859, 1863, and 1874 rifles are used. Hunters and target shooters also use these models because of their incredible accuracy. Now that we've shot our long-distance target, let's take a step back and look at the following. 3. Colt Navy Revolving Belt Pistol, 1851. The next gun on our list is the Navy pistol. This revolver is a six-shooter that screams Old West and is the predecessor to an even more iconic Colt gun, which we'll discuss later in this video. The Colt Navy was not only a beast with its power, but also an artistic masterpiece. Just look at these engravings. And they're not random designs either. The cylinder has an engraving depicting the victory of the 2nd Texas Navy at the Battle of Campeche. The reason is that the Texas Navy had used the previous Colt Paterson revolver in the battle. Few guns nowadays would have such a beautiful reminder that their sibling models have won wars. Honestly, that's why we recommend engraving or customizing your gun if you own one. Make your weapon truly yours and make it your source of pride. You may not win the West with it, but you may win a shooting contest or scare away burglars of your own. This gun was used by both real and fictional people. The Texas Rangers, Ulysses S. Grant, John Hayes, Robert E. Lee, and the man with no name all wielded a Colt Navy. Civilians, along with military land forces, also owned the Colt Navy. Provided you could afford it, it was easily accessible. Even after newer, more efficient models came out, this gun's staying power was massive, and many kept theirs until it fell apart. And would you blame them? This gun was also a powerhouse that used metallic cartridges, all the way until casement of production back in 1873, being replaced with the General Colt line. Overall, the total number of these models was around 42,000. The Colt Navy was small but powerful. The .36 caliber round balls weighed about 80 grams and shot at a speed of 1,000 feet per second, comparable to a .38 modern pistol cartridge. Balls, bullets, metal foil cartridges, or combustible paper cartridges could be loaded into the Colt Navy. The cartridges were ignited by a percussion cup placed on the nipple by the rear chamber. Now, let's look at another iconic rifle that won an iconic war and helped tribes fight back against the colonizers. 4. The Henry Rifle. Next, we have the Henry Rifle. This name comes from gunsmith manufacturer Benjamin Tyler Henry. It was another lever-action rifle using a tube chamber with a history. The original rifle was a .44 caliber breech-loading lever-action rifle, produced between 1860 and 1866 by the New Haven Arms Company. This 16-shot rifle was the pride of everyone who owned it, including Union troops in the Civil War. The reason is that the Henry's firepower was far greater than standard-issue carbines. While it's hard to know the exact numbers, nearly 10,000 rifles were used during the Civil War, and only a fraction, about 1,781, came from the government itself and the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Up to 7,000 of those rifles used by the Union came from soldiers who could afford them. The rifle cost $40 at the time, or over $1,400 in today's money. Imagine fighting for your country and spending a good chunk of change on your own weapons. Many men on the battlefield would save their pay to buy one of these. Scouts, skirmishers, raiders, and even flank guards would use this, along with infantry soldiers. While it cost a lot, the victory that came with it was well worth the investment. Some well-known leaders during the Civil War commented on the Henry rifle. One of them was John Mosby, a Confederate colonel who became known for his raids against the positions of Union soldiers. When he encountered the Henry in battle, he called them that damned Yankee rifle that can be loaded on Sunday and fired all week. Quite the name for it, but it stuck, and since that remark, it became further associated with the Henry rifle. The Henry was also hard to resupply for Confederate troops because of very little ammunition, hence why many Confederate soldiers did not use them. Only those in Texas, Louisiana, and Jefferson Davis's personal bodyguards were seen to have used these. But the Civil War wasn't the only war won. The rifles decided the Battle of Little Bighorn between General Custer and native tribes, such as the Sioux and Cheyenne. Who won? I'll give you a hint. The Battle of Little Bighorn is better known as Custer's Last Stand. When the Henry rifle fell into the hands of the Sioux and Cheyenne tribes, it was over. Once the tribes decided to embrace technology, their warrior spirit carried them to victory. Now, let's look at another legendary revolver. 5. Remington Model 1858. Next, there's the Remington Beals models, which are percussion revolvers designed by Eliphalet Remington & Sons, a prestigious company during the Civil War. Known incorrectly as the 1858 by many because of the patented markings located near the barrels, this gun paved the way towards a new beginning of large-frame models. This 6-shot revolver made shooting your targets even more effective. It not only had a rugged look to it, but its metallic cartridge conversions made it a game changer, changing the ammo from cap and ball to metallic bullets. As a result, this was a major revolver used in the Union cavalry, second only to the Colt. Nothing could stop the soldiers when they had this revolver. Well, except for a fire at the Colt factory. But even then, the revolvers the soldier had won the day. After the fire, Samuel Remington went to Washington in 1861, selling his .44 caliber revolvers for $15, $10 less than his competitors. But it wasn't just Union soldiers who used this revolver. What about the legendary showman Buffalo Bill? He used a variant of this revolver from 1863 to 1906. He then passed it along to a ranch foreman and included a note. The note said, "It never failed me." Considering he used this gun for over 40 years, we're inclined to agree. This pistol was later sold in 2012 at an auction for a whopping $239,000. Here's hoping this revolver is still hitting its targets all these years later. Or at least it is a great conversation piece in someone's house. Now, let's take a trip to Springfield. 6. Springfield Model, 1866. Here is a different type of gun, the trapdoor breech loader. These guns are loadable through the gun's breech or the open end of the top. This breech loader was quite revolutionary for the time, being the conversion of rifle muskets to breech loaders and eventually becoming the Model 73, which was used by U.S. troops. It could shoot 12 rounds a minute, which, at the time, could take down armies in the right hands. This particular model was used in the American Indian Wars and the Franco-Prussian War, and the later 73 model was used in the Spanish-American and Philippine-American Wars. It was also used in the wagon box fight, the hayfield fight, and also the Bozeman Trail. The rapid fire rate proved to be a great tactic in conflict against the Sioux and Cheyenne natives. In many cases, these rifles were the reason why some engagements turned out to be successful, even when U.S. troops were severely outnumbered. The gun also made one man famous, Buffalo Bill, whose Springfield breech loader he named Lucretia Borgia, derived from the historic Italian femme fatale Lucrezia Borgia, Duchess of Ferrara. While one may not think of a gun as feminine, it certainly is fatal. And the next gun was so fatal that other countries were clamoring for it. 7. Smith & Wesson No. 3, 1870. In 1856, Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson founded Smith & Wesson, which produced subvariants. With this funding came some legendary guns, including the Smith & Wesson No. 3. The top break revolver won not only the West, but also Russia. That's right. The Russian Empire ordered large numbers of these guns, each with a unique design. At the time, the Russian military was looking to modernize, and it turned to an ally that seemed unlikely by today's standards: the USA. It wasn't just armies that used this gun, but famous sharpshooters and revolutionaries. Mexican revolutionary Emiliano Zapata used his own Smith & Wesson with his name on the handle. Annie Oakley, one of the most famous sharpshooters in the West, also used one, and it's been preserved in all its glory. Hers was gold-plated and had pearl grips. You've heard of the man with the golden gun? Now here's the woman with the golden gun. And you better not cross her. The next gun on this list may have won the West, or at least was marketed that way. 8. Winchester Model, 1873. Winchester rifles were manufactured by the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, founded by Oliver Winchester. It is a comprehensive term, but all of them incorporated a repeating lever-action rifle. They were known as the earliest repeaters. The original Winchester rifle was manufactured in 1866, and the last of its original lineup was manufactured in 1895. They kept the .44 cartridge and was built on an alloy frame, with a wooden forearm and magazine. The second model, the 1873, was the most famous one of them all. The 1873 model allowed users to carry only one type of ammunition due to its chamber's ability to hold 40 and 32, 20 bullets. This meant that if you had a revolver, you could use the same ammunition with it as you could with the 1873 rifle. This doesn't seem like a big deal nowadays, but if you mixed up ammunition or were out of a particular type, it could make the difference between victory and defeat. Because of this convenience, it was dubbed the gun that won the West, making expansion much easier and putting fear into the hearts of criminals, and, occasionally, the good guys too. It's also a rifle largely popular in Western media, with movies named after it. Also, in 2014, an 1873 rifle weathered by time was found against a juniper tree in Great Basin Park, Nevada. It was dubbed the Forgotten Winchester and is available for viewing. While this particular Winchester may have been forgotten, the gun's legacy definitely has not. It's still a gun discussed and envied by gun collectors everywhere. The 1876 Winchester model offered more powerful cartridges, with powerful chambered cartridges. The toggle link was not strong enough for high-powered rounds, especially when compared to the Remington and Sharp's single-shot rifles. Now, let's look at a gun that will blow you away and blow the outlaws away too. 9. The coach gun. Next, we have the coach gun, a double-barreled shotgun commonly used in stagecoaches and by shotgun messengers, guards in charge of protecting any valuable goods. Have you ever heard the phrase riding shotgun when someone has to ride in the front passenger seat? This is where the phrase originated. The coach gun was marketed and distributed by Stugger Industries in Maryland. It also offered a blue steel version and a nickel-plated version, available in 20 and 12 gauge. Wells Fargo was the first to use shotgun messengers and blew away any bandits who dared try to steal their valuable goods. Doc Holliday, a famous gunfighter, allegedly used a 10-gauge W.M. Moore and Company shotgun during the gunfight at the OK Carroll. Holliday took down outlaw Tom McClory with a point-blank shot that was so small that the mortician easily covered the wound with just one hand. He didn't need to tear an entire hole into McClory for him to win. Other people who used coach guns include Wyatt Earp. Earp killed outlaws Frank Stillwell and William Brocious by allegedly using coach guns. These guns made Earp a feared man who is still talked about to this day. We say allegedly because accounts of these stories contradict. Some people say that they use other types of guns to kill their enemies. That being said, the coach gun brought fear into the hearts of any outlaw, whether their friends died from one or not. If an outlaw got too close to one, it was over. Only the luck of God would let you survive if there was a shotgun blast coming your way, and God wasn't too fond of outlaws. Finally, let's talk about the most famous gun of all, and you probably have a good idea of what it is. 10. Colt Single Action Army, 1873. Finally, we have a gun that was perhaps the most feared of them all. We're, of course, talking about the Colt Single Action Army. Designed for the U.S. government by Colt's Manufacturing, this revolver was adopted in the U.S. Army from 1873 to 1892. Even if you don't know anything about firearms, you've probably heard this name before. It's been featured in so many movies, books, and folklore throughout the years. The gun was so popular that even when production got canceled twice, it was later renewed by popular demand. The Colt was one of the most famous parts of the Wild West and Americana eras because ranchers, lawmen, and outlaws alike used these. But this gun doesn't need to be romanticized. It was loved and feared during its time. It was simple to keep shooting without spending too much time reloading. With over 30 different calibers and multiple barrel lengths, the sky's the limit on options. The fixed sights made it one of the most accurate guns at the time. In fact, it was dubbed by a self-explanatory name, the Peacemaker. When a lawman showed up armed with the Single Action Army, everyone stopped any unlawful activities. And when a criminal came in, everyone ran like hell. One gun, allegedly from 1898, even has a poem on it. Be not afraid of any man who walks beneath the skies. Though big he be, or shall you be, for I shall equalize, is what it roughly says. It's a reminder that guns were the great equalizer and peacemakers of the world. As the society became more armed, they became more polite to any strangers passing them by. To this day, you still see the Colt in use, especially during Civil War reenactors and collectors. The design also influences the production and distribution of other models from various companies. The Colt is one heck of a gun, and with its capabilities and flexibility, it's no wonder that it was a favorite among lawful and lawless alike. And there you have it. These 10 guns helped reshape the Wild West, winning wars, catching food, and even being used for entertainment. With gun technology improving and more people having access to these firearms, the Wild West would become tamed. And there were many other guns used during these times. So if you want to follow up, let us know. We could name 10, 20, or even 30 more guns. As always, we're eager to hear what you have to say. So make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell for notification, and leave a comment below telling us your thoughts.